Let's dive into these wild card weekend games. Jags. Let's start with the Jags. The Jags came from 27 points down to basically steal the soul of the LA Chargers. And this was, I believe, a total sign of Chargers failure as much as it was a sign of Jags tenacity. So if you were watching this game, 4 first-half interceptions by Trevor Lawrence, 5 first-half turnovers by the Jags. Second half, no turnovers, 4 touchdown passes from Trevor Lawrence. The Jags came back from 27-0 down, scored a late first-half touchdown to make it a 20-point deficit, then win 31-30. I thought it was the most exhilarating game of the weekend and that there were the most intriguing moving parts associated with it. So let me start here. There were a lot of different signature moments. Never in the history of the NFL playoffs has a team been +5, that is, the Chargers were +5 in the turnover margin and lost a game. So this is unprecedented to have and find the ability to lose this game. And Brandon Staley is under a great deal of scrutiny now going forward because Sean Payton is sitting there out on the sideline, and we have clearly a stud when it comes to Sean Payton on the sideline who could be a really good coach. You know, if you are the Chargers, that Justin Herbert is a fabulous quarterback. Austin Eckler, solid running back. Really talented wide receivers, although you didn't have a stud wide receiver playing for you because Staley made the ridiculous decision to play him, Michael Williams, in a game that it made no sense whatsoever to have him out on the field. So, as you break all of this down, the first question the Chargers have going forward is, what in the world are they going to do with this whole situation in general as it pertains to this situation with failure on every turn, at every direction associated with the Chargers when it comes to giving up big leads, when it comes to just not being able to take the proverbial next step. So that in and of itself is a huge part of this story. Sean Payton being out there watching and available is a huge part of this story. But ultimately, this is about the Jags to me. As much as the Chargers may have chargered in this choke job, the Jags have gone from, I believe, 3-7 to now advancing to the divisional round of the playoff, going on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs. And Trevor Lawrence has evolved in a way that is pretty impressive. And I wanted to hit you with this because if you're in the AFC right now, Final 4 AFC quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes obviously didn't play this weekend. He's 27. Patrick Mahomes is the oldest of the Final 4 AFC quarterbacks right now. Josh Allen, just 26. Talk about his win in a moment. Joe Burrow, just 26. And Trevor Lawrence, only 23 years old. There is so much young quarterback talent in the AFC. I don't know that we have ever seen this much young quarterback talent on one side of the NFL divide. The NFC is a mess at quarterback. A lot older, way less accomplished. But in the AFC, 27-year-old Patrick Mahomes, he's the veteran of this group. 26-year-old Josh Allen, 26-year-old Joe Burrow, 23-year-old Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be really, really hard to get through this situation in the AFC, given the quarterbacking talent that is there and will be there potentially for the next 15 years. Bills outlast the Dolphins. Look, I thought Buffalo played really poorly in this game. Got up early, 17-0. You felt like they might pull away, and then they turned the ball over. They failed multiple occasions when they could have created some real space here. I didn't think Mike McDaniel called a great game. Getting the delay of game penalties, relatively unacceptable. But, man, when I look at the Bills, I feel like they just squeaked past the Dolphins. And now we get this matchup with the Bengals. Let me go back to a minute to that Jags game. I know there was a lot of focus paid on Bosa for slamming down his helmet in frustration over what I thought was a clear false start by the right tackle. Here's what I hate about situations like these. When an official makes a wrong call and a player who reacts to that wrong call is penalized for it, it feels like it doubles the failure. Now, you can say Bosa shouldn't have slammed his helmet, and that gave the opportunity to the Jags to go for two, which they probably otherwise wouldn't have taken there, which opened the door to the Chargers losing. But as an official, when you miss a call like that, I hate reacting to the player's emotion over the missed call. For instance, if you miss a call clearly in basketball, and then you tee up the player for reacting to the missed call, I feel like it is a doubling of the error. And I felt like that was in play in that Jags game against the Chargers in the way they reacted. Now, credit to the brilliant play by Trevor Lawrence from the one to dive forward and break the plane. I think that's what happened and should happen on a lot of these times when you get half the distance to the goal and get to do a two-point conversion from the one. I think that's probably what was going on in the Ravens-Bengals game when we saw the ball trying to be extended there and by Huntley. And clearly, incredible play. Ball gets knocked away. We get a 98, 99-yard return, which decided that game. But I think that was a direct reaction, I really do, to the success of that play that we saw in that game between the Jags and the Chargers. I bet there was watching there. So, Bills outlast the Dolphins. Josh Allen was not very good. Couple of turnovers. He has been erratic at times. He can make any play. Sometimes he tries to make too many plays. Dolphins without Tua were really not much of a threat. Skyler was not going to be able to come in there and perform at anywhere near the level I don't think Tua could have. But they had a chance to win this game. I was not impressed with the Bills as they outlasted the Dolphins. Giants took down the Vikings, and there were a lot of plays in this game that deserved a great deal of attention, but I despise. Saw the same thing happen in the Titans' end of their season against the Jags. How do you throw underneath on fourth down? How in the world do you throw under the line to gain on fourth down? Unless, and again, there are always exceptions, unless there is a guy wide open that you can see is easily going to gain the down and distance. The Vikings season comes to a close. Vikings were 11-0 in games that were decided by 7 or fewer points. And suddenly they lose in the postseason. Minnesota, I would argue, and Minneapolis, St. Paul area in general, most star-crossed, currently crushing area to be a sports fan. They won, the Twins did, the World Series back in 1992-ish, off the top of my head. Since then, and a long time since 1992 now, everybody in Minnesota has lost, and they've also often lost in really diabolical, excruciating fashion. And I would argue that of a city with the four major sports franchises, NHL, NBA, Major League Baseball, and the NFL, if you have a city with the four major sports franchises, no city is cursed more than the Minneapolis area is right now. So if you are breaking this down, I think it's worth contemplating how exactly that is going on. But the Giants, in a first year with Brian Daboll, make a huge step to win a playoff game. Huge moment for Daniel Jones, who has validated much of the faith that has been shown in him. Saquon Barkley, certainly, and that crew to be able to get a win. Brian Daboll, amazing difference that he has made in year one with the Giants. And if you're a Vikings fan, I know a lot of people want to blame Kirk Cousins, and I blame him for the 4th and 8 decision to throw the ball underneath. But ultimately, that offense was pretty explosive. I would love to have seen Justin Jefferson just get a chance to make a play down the field, give him an opportunity, given what happens with pass interference and everything else. I'd rather have him trying to make a play than your tight end trying to break tackles and rumble for 8 yards. But by and large, it was the defense that created a lot of these issues for the Vikings. If you score as many points as they did over the course of the season, there were very few games that you lost as a Minnesota Vikings fan where you came back and said, hey, the reason why we lost was the offense's performance in this game. By and large, the NFL season for the Vikings came down to their ability to make plays. Now, they only scored 24 in the postseason game. I understand that you would want more, but again, the defense by and large was what created this issue more so than anything else. Bengals outlast the Ravens. We talked about the Huntley attempting to get over with the sneak. I thought he played pretty well in the grand scheme of things. I'm looking up his stats right now to see what the data would reflect. Tyler Huntley, basically the equivalent of Joe Burrow in terms of his statistical numbers. But there are a lot of things in this game. First of all, the Ravens take possession of the ball with 3 minutes and 14 seconds left, I believe. And then in that 3 minutes and 14 seconds, they managed to run out of time and had to throw up a Hail Mary. That's pretty difficult to even contemplate. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. I understand that the Ravens were trying to run out the clock, and they didn't want to find themselves in a scenario where Joe Burrow and the Bengals get the ball back and can return and kick a field goal. I think the Ravens were planning to go for 2 and go for the win. I would have been stunned. But really, this game came down to the Huntley trying to reach the ball over. But then really poor, I thought, management overall of the final drive. The fact that you run out of time, keep two timeouts basically in your pocket, take away the opportunity to run J.K. Dobbins very much, who was an explosive playmaker, and the Bengals outlast the Ravens. So we get the Bengals game against the Bills, which should be a good one. We talked about how young all the quarterbacks are in the AFC. And I think I've talked about everybody but the 49ers now pulled away late from the Seahawks. Seahawks played really well for about the first 3 quarters of that game, then fell apart in the fourth quarter. And look, the question out there is, does Brock Purdy have what it takes to lead this 49ers offense? Because I think if you take away the quarterback, the single most talented team in football right now is the San Francisco 49ers on both the defense and offensive side of the ball. If Brock Purdy can play like he did, over 300 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, had another touchdown, would have been dropped in the end zone on an absolute dime of a throw. If he continues to play like this, there is an analogy with Tom Brady, late round draft pick, comes in to take over for a starter, actually 2 starters in this scenario because Trey Lance and Jimmy G are both lost. How many NFL teams would be in the final 8 with their third-string quarterback? Not very many. I think we deserve a lot of credit for Brock Purdy and what he has been able to accomplish. Seahawks had a good year. If you had told Seahawks fans, hey, Russell Wilson is gone, you're going to ride with Geno Smith all year, and you would be in a playoff game late in the third quarter in a very competitive playoff game, have the lead basically at the half, I think every Seahawk fan would have signed on for that. Lots of reasons for optimism with the Seahawks, Pete Carroll's team going forward. But the 49ers, it feels like to me, are going to go head-to-head with Jalen Hurts and the Eagles before all is said and done, although we will see what happens